I was on my way to my annual health checkup when I suddenly realized I had left my hearing aid at home. Annoyed with myself, I turned the truck around. When I pulled into the driveway, I heard my daughter and her husband arguing inside the kitchen. "Tonight, we finish it." I stepped closer to the open window, holding my breath. What I heard next made my stomach drop, and the ground feel unsteady beneath my boots. In that moment, I understood I couldn't walk through my own front door, and if I wanted to survive what they were planning, I had to disappear before they knew I was there. Welcome back to Family Revenge Stories, and thank you for being here. If you're still watching, take a second and comment below. Where in the world are you tuning in from right now? And what's the temperature outside your window? I'm always amazed by how many countries and time zones this channel connects. And just so you know, this narrative includes certain HUKU elements for entertainment and educational value. Any resemblance to real names or locations is coincidental, but the message behind it is powerful and worth hearing. The October sunrise painted the Bitterroot Mountains in shades of copper and gold as I walked the fence line behind the barn. 5:30 came early most mornings, but after 43 years of ranching, my body didn't know any other way. The frost crunched beneath my boots, Montana's way of reminding you winter was always just around the corner. I checked the water trough by the south pasture. The 120 head of Black Angus were already stirring their breath, rising in small clouds against the morning chill. This routine checking cattle mending fence, keeping an eye on the land, it was as natural to me as breathing. Vivian used to say I had dirt in my veins instead of blood. She'd been gone 5 years now, but I still heard her voice sometimes carried on the wind that swept down from the high country. The main house stood quiet as I finished my morning rounds. Audrey and Randall had driven up from Bozeman Friday evening, said they wanted to spend the weekend help out around the place. It was unusual. My daughter practiced law in the city, and her husband worked in some kind of financial consulting. They weren't exactly the ranch visit type, especially not in late October when the temperature barely cracked 40 degrees. I glanced at my watch. 7 o'clock. The cardiology appointment in Livingston was at 7:30, just the annual checkup, nothing serious. Dr. Beverly Harper had been monitoring my ticker for 15 years, and so far the old engine was holding up just fine. I grabbed my truck keys from the hook by the kitchen door and started down the gravel drive. The drive to Livingston usually took 45 minutes, but I'd made it in 40 plenty of times. The 2-lane highway wound through ranch country past properties I'd known my whole life. The Donnelly place, the old McIntyre spread that got sold off to some California outfit 5 years back. This land had stories, and I knew every one of them. I was maybe 10 miles out when I reached up to adjust my hearing aid and felt nothing but my ear. My stomach dropped. The device was sitting on the bathroom counter right next to Vivian's old soap dish, the blue ceramic one she'd brought back from that trip to Santa Fe. I could picture it exactly sitting there in the morning light. I pulled over onto the shoulder and sat for a moment, weighing my options. Dr. Harper's nurse would need to explain the test results, go over the medication schedule. Without the hearing aid, I'd miss half of what she said. These appointments took months to schedule, but showing up unable to hear properly seemed pointless. I checked my watch again. 7:15. If I turned around now, I could grab the device and call from home to reschedule. It wasn't ideal, but it made more sense than sitting in that waiting room, nodding and pretending I understood. The decision made, I swung the truck around and headed back toward the ranch. The October sun had climbed higher by the time I turned down my drive, 7:40 by my watch. The whole detour had taken maybe 30 minutes. I parked by the side of the house near the kitchen entrance and killed the engine. The place sat quiet just the way I'd left it. I climbed out my boots, hitting gravel with the soft crunch that comes from years of knowing how to move quietly. Ranching teaches you that how to approach a spooked horse, how to check on cattle without disturbing the herd. You learn to read the land, to move like you belong there. That's when I heard the voices. The kitchen window was cracked open, Audrey's doing probably. She always said the house needed fresh air, even when it was cold enough to see your breath. The voices drifted out sharp and clear in the still morning air. And tonight, Audrey, we need to finalize this. Randall's voice. That careful, measured tone he used when talking about money, but sharper now, more insistent. I stopped walking. My hand found the porch railing, the wood smooth under my palm from 40 years of use. Vivian and I had built this railing together back when Audrey was still in elementary school. I don't know, Randall. Audrey's voice quieter. Not the warm tone she used with me, but something uncertain, strained. This feels... The evaluation is scheduled for next week. Randall cut her off. Once we establish the baseline, the guardianship petition moves forward. We've been over this. My chest tightened. Guardianship. The word hung in the cold air like something you could reach out and touch. But what if he finds out? Audrey asked. I could hear the worry in her voice, the kind that comes from doubt, from second thoughts. What if he won't? Dr. Nash is reliable. He understands the situation. Randall's voice dropped lower, but I could still hear him clearly. My hearing wasn't perfect, but it wasn't that bad. Not when people were talking this loud, this close. The assessment will show exactly what we need it to show. I moved closer to the window, my rancher's instinct telling me to stay quiet to gather information before acting. The frost-covered grass muffled my footsteps. Nah, 3.1 million, Audrey. Randall again, his tone taking on that edge he got when closing a deal. That's just the land value. The cattle equipment water rights we're looking at close to 4 million total. But we need to move before he changes anything. Before he talks to anyone who might complicate things. The numbers hit me like a physical blow. They weren't talking about helping me. They weren't talking about my health or my welfare. They were talking about the value of everything Vivian and I had built. They were talking about taking it. Once guardianship is granted, we have full control. Randall continued. Financial decisions, medical decisions, everything. The attorney confirmed it. He won't be able to fight it. The system doesn't work that way. And Brian Lauren. Audrey's voice was small now, hesitant. Your brother's in Seattle. He barely calls right, and your sister's got her own life in Billings. They won't interfere. They never have. By the time they even hear about it, everything will be settled. There was a pause. I could picture them standing in my kitchen in the house Vivian and I had filled with 40 years of memories. The silence stretched out, broken only by the distant call of a hawk riding the thermals above the eastern ridge. Okay, Audrey finally said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Okay. But Randall, if this goes wrong... It won't, trust me. I stood frozen beside my own house, my hand gripping the porch railing that Vivian and I had built together 4 decades ago. My daughter, my Audrey, was inside, being pushed into discussing guardianship evaluations, assessments, and the exact value of my life's work. And she was wavering. The morning cold had nothing on the chill spreading through my chest. You said I didn't go inside. Ranchers learn early that sometimes you need distance to think clearly, which is why I'd spent 48 winters checking fence lines whenever problems felt bigger than the house could hold. My boots carried me back to the truck on instinct. The engine turned over with its familiar rumble, and I eased down the drive away from the voices still murmuring through that cracked kitchen window. The gravel crunched under my tires, a sound that had marked my comings and goings for 4 decades. Today, it felt like leaving something behind. The highway stretched out before me empty in the late morning light. I should have been at Dr. Harper's office an hour ago. The missed appointment sat in my mind like a stone, but my hands stayed steady on the wheel. 43 years of ranching teaches you to compartmentalize. You don't fix fence when a calf is breeching. You don't worry about hay prices when a storm is coming. You handle what's in front of you, then you handle what's next. What was in front of me was the need to appear normal, to not let them know I'd heard, to buy time. I pulled into a gas station just outside Livingston and used the payphone. Betty answered on the second ring at Dr. Harper's office, her familiar voice warm with recognition. "Ah, Graham, we were wondering what happened to you." "Skaktakuman." I said the lie coming easier than it should have. "Think I can squeeze in this afternoon?" "Let me check." "You're in luck. We had a cancellation at 2. Can you make that, I'll be there." The hours between stretched long. I drove the back roads, letting muscle memory handle the steering while my mind worked through what I'd heard. Guardianship petition. Evaluation. Dr. Nash. 3.1 million. The words cycled through my head like cattle moving through a chute, each one getting examined, catalogued, set aside for later use. Audrey wasn't always like this. She'd grown up helping with the haying, learning to read weather patterns, understanding the value of patience and hard work. Vivian used to say our daughter had ranching in her blood, even if she chose courtrooms instead of pastures. When had that changed? When had my daughter started seeing me as an obstacle instead of her father? Or maybe she hadn't. Maybe someone had taught her to. The thought settled cold in my gut. Randall's voice had been the insistent one, the pushing one. Audrey's had wavered, questioned. "What if he finds out?" she'd asked. Not the words of someone fully committed. Not yet. Vivian always said I was too curious for my own good. She'd be proven right again. By the time I pulled into Dr. Harper's office, I'd made my decision. Investigation, not confrontation. Evidence, not accusations. The element of surprise was the only advantage I had, and I wasn't about to waste it on an emotional scene that would accomplish nothing, except warning them I knew. Betty waved me back with a smile. The familiar routine of the examination room felt surreal: blood pressure, cuff, stethoscope. The doctors practiced questions. Dr. Harper had been monitoring my heart since I turned 53. She knew every beat, every rhythm. "Blood pressure's excellent," she said, making notes on her chart. 128/78. "Heart sounds strong." "How's the exercise tolerance?" "Same as always. Morning rounds, fence work, moving cattle. No different than 10 years ago." She nodded, continuing her examination. The cognitive questions came next: date, time, recent events, simple memory tests. I'd done them every year, but today they felt weighted with meaning I couldn't share. You're doing great, Graham," Dr. Harper said, finally setting down her pen. "Honestly, you're healthier than people half your age. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." The irony hit like a fist. My daughter was somewhere planning to have me declared incompetent, while my doctor was confirming the exact opposite. The dissonance was almost funny. Almost. "Everything okay?" Dr. Harper asked, catching something in my expression. "Fine. Just thinking about all the work waiting back at the ranch." She smiled. "Well, you're more than fit to handle it. Same time next year." Sounds good." I left with a clean bill of health, documented in my medical records. It wasn't much, but it was something. Evidence. Proof. The first piece of a puzzle I was only beginning to understand. The drive home gave me time to think strategically. If Audrey believed I was declining, someone had convinced her of it. If she mentioned evaluations, they'd already arranged one. If they were discussing guardianship, they'd researched the process. This wasn't a spontaneous conversation. This was a plan already in motion, and I'd been completely blind to it. How long had this been going on? Weeks, months. How many visits had there been? How many phone calls? How many careful questions designed to build a case I never saw coming? The questions multiplied, but the path forward was clear. I needed scope. How extensive was this plan? I needed evidence. What exactly were they planning, and how far along were they? And most critically, I needed allies. Because whatever was coming, I couldn't face it alone. I pulled into the ranch drive just after noon. Audrey's car was gone. The house sat quiet, innocent, as if betrayal hadn't been discussed in my kitchen just hours ago. I walked inside, the familiar creak of the door, the smell of coffee still lingering from morning. Everything looked the same. Nothing was. I sat at the kitchen table, the one Vivian had refinished 20 years ago, and pulled out a notepad. The kind I used for tracking cattle weights and feed schedules. Today it would serve a different purpose. I started writing, Item 1. Find out who's helping them. Dr. Nash was a name I didn't recognize, but doctors kept records, had reputations. Someone would know him. Item 2. Find out how long this has been going on. Phone records, maybe. Visits I'd dismissed as normal. Patterns I'd missed. Item 3. Make sure they never see me coming. The hardest one, the most important one. Every instinct I had screamed to confront Audrey, to demand answers, to fight this head-on, like I'd fought every challenge in 43 years of ranching. But ranchers also know when to be patient, when to watch and wait, when to let the other side think they're winning right up until the moment you prove them wrong. I looked down at the list, the words stark against the lined paper. Somewhere in Bozeman, Randall and Audrey were probably celebrating, thinking their plan was on track, thinking I was oblivious. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about a lot of things, but they wouldn't know it until I was ready. I once tracked a mountain lion through 3 feet of spring snow. I once found lost cattle in a summer thunderstorm when visibility dropped to 10 feet. Tracking my daughter's plans required the same patience and the same refusal to show your hand too early. Monday morning, I sat at Vivian's old desk in the study. She'd organized everything with the precision of a woman who understood that ranch life required systems. Her filing cabinet still held years of records, cattle sales equipment, purchases, tax documents. Everything a person would need to prove competence if it came to that. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 15 years. Marcus Quinn answered on the 3rd ring. Quinn Investigations. Marcus, it's Graham Foster, from the Willow Creek Ranch. A pause, then recognition. Graham. Been a long time. That cattle theft case back in, what was it, 2009? 2009. You found those missing steers in 3 days. Good memory. What can I do for you? I chose my words carefully. I need someone to look into a situation. Family matter. Sensitive. I'm listening. My daughter and her husband are planning to file for guardianship. They think I'm declining. I'm not. I need to know what they're planning, who's helping them, and how far along they are. Marcus let out a low whistle. That's a hell of a thing. You sure about this? I heard them discussing it, in my own kitchen. Okay. I'll need details. Everything you've got. I spent the next 20 minutes laying it out, the overheard conversation, the mention of Dr. Nash, the evaluation scheduled for next week, the 3.1 million figure. Marcus took notes, asked clarifying questions, worked with the efficiency I remembered. I can start today, he said finally. A background check on the son-in-law financial records, if we can access them legally, information on this Dr. Nash character. You mentioned he's in geriatric psychiatry. That's what they said. I've never heard of him. I'll find out everything there is to know. One more thing, Graham, you need to document your own competence. Daily activities, financial management, medical records, everything. Can you do that? Already started. After I hung up, I pulled out my phone and started recording. First video entry, date, time, morning routine already completed. Fed cattle, checked water systems, repaired the gate latch on the south pasture. Recited the current cattle count, hay inventory, feed costs per head. The kind of detailed management that doesn't come from a failing mind. Then I turned to the computer, a skill Vivian had insisted I learn 10 years ago, despite my protests. The Montana guardianship statutes loaded slowly on the ranch's internet connection, but I had patience. Ranching teaches you that. The law was clearer than I'd hoped, and worse than I'd feared. 2 family members could petition. A medical evaluation was required. A court hearing would follow. If the judge found cause, guardianship could be granted full control over finances, medical decisions, even where I lived. The person under guardianship had rights to contest, to hire an attorney, but the burden of proof shifted. Once someone claimed you were incompetent, you had to prove you weren't. I printed every relevant statute, highlighted key passages, started building a file. By Tuesday evening, when Audrey's car pulled up the drive, I documented 2 full days of ranch management, researched 3 Montana elder law attorneys, and compiled 15 years of my medical records showing consistent good health. I'd also learned that Dr. Clifford Nash had a reputation for conducting evaluations that favored whoever paid for them. Information Marcus had uncovered in less than 24 hours. I met them at the door with a smile that felt like it belonged on someone else's face. "Hey there. Wasn't expecting you two tonight. Just thought we'd check in," Audrey said, hugging me. "See how you're doing." "Doing fine. Just finished the evening rounds. You two eat, yet I've got leftover roast from Sunday." Over dinner beef I'd raised myself on grass I'd maintained for 40 years. I watched them with new eyes. Randall's careful questions, Audrey's forced cheerfulness. They were building a case, and every interaction was evidence collection. "Dad, what day is today?" Randall asked, casually cutting his meat. I looked up from my plate. "Tuesday, October 26th. Why do you ask?" "Just making conversation." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Dad, did you remember to take your blood pressure medication?" Audrey interjected. "Same time every morning for 5 years running, sweetheart. 8 a.m. with breakfast." I watched her face carefully. "Why, you worried about something?" "No, I just checking in." They were documenting signs of decline that didn't exist. Testing my memory, my medication compliance, my awareness of dates and times. Every question designed to expose weakness. What they didn't know was that I was documenting them right back. The phone in my shirt pocket was recording audio. The time-stamped file would show me answering every question correctly, demonstrating full awareness, managing complex ranch operations without hesitation. Randall shifted tactics. "How's the ranch finances looking? Property taxes coming due soon, aren't they?" "Paid them last week. October 15th deadline. Been paying them on time for 43 years. I took a sip of water. "You interested in ranch finances, Randall?" "Just curious how everything works." "Well, it works fine. Revenue from cattle sales runs about $150,000 to $180,000 annually. Operating costs around $100,000. Leaves me comfortable, plus I've got savings. The land's paid off has been since 1998. Want me to walk you through the spreadsheets?" His smile tightened. "That's not necessary." Audrey jumped in. "Dad, we're just glad you're managing everything so well." The irony wasn't lost on me. They needed me to be declining, but I kept demonstrating the opposite. It must have been frustrating. After they left, Audrey hugging me goodbye, Randall shaking my hand with that politician's grip. I walked through the house, turning off lights, locking doors. The nightly routine I'd done for 4 decades. That's when I saw it. A business card on the coffee table, partially hidden under a magazine. Dr. Clifford Nash, Geriatric Psychiatry, with a Bozeman address and phone number. Randall must have dropped it. Accidentally or intentionally, I couldn't tell. Maybe he wanted me to find it. Wanted me to call and schedule an appointment out of confusion or concern. Maybe he was just careless. Either way, it was a gift. I photographed both sides of the card, with my phone capturing every detail in sharp focus. Then I texted the images to Marcus with a message, "Find out everything about this doctor. I think he's part of the plan." Marcus Quinn called back within 18 hours. I'd learned that when a private investigator works that fast, the news is usually bad, or the trail was obvious enough that anyone looking would have found it. "Graham, you sitting down." His voice carried that careful tone people use before dropping something heavy. I was in the study, Vivian's organized files spread across the desk. I'm listening. Dr. Clifford Nash. Licensed since 2003, clean record technically. But over the past decade, he's conducted 47 guardianship evaluations. 43 resulted in recommendations for full guardianship. That's 91%. State average is 40%. He specializes in finding incompetence. My hand tightened on the phone. What else? Your son-in-law's finances are a disaster. Credit card debt in the mid-5 figures, behind on rent twice last year. His consulting business grossed $32,000. That's not a living, Graham. That's drowning. The pieces clicked into place, each one harder than the last. Here's where it gets interesting, Marcus continued. Randall's father, Raymond Pierce, 72, lives in Bozeman. 6 months ago, he inherited $2.1 million from his deceased brother. Probate cleared in August. My chest tightened. His father, retired principal, lives alone. And Graham, 3 weeks ago, Craig Pierce visited a guardianship attorney. Craig is Randall's older brother. I've got the appointment on record. No, 2 fathers, 1 scheme. So that's my read. Randall targets you $3.1 million. Craig targets Raymond $2.1 million. Both sons broke. Both fathers with significant assets. Both guardianship petitions in the works. Vivian used to say coincidences were just patterns you hadn't recognized yet. This wasn't coincidence. This was coordination. Send me everything on Raymond Pierce, I said. I need to see what's happening on his end. After we hung up, I spent 2 hours researching Raymond online. Retired educator, library volunteer, widower for 8 years, 2 sons, Craig and Randall. He looked like what he was, a decent man who'd spent his life teaching teenagers algebra and coaching chess club. He had no idea his sons were circling like wolves. The drive to Bozeman took 90 minutes, the October sun setting behind the Bridger Range. Raymond's address led to a quiet neighborhood of older homes, white siding, blue shutters, a neat lawn showing someone still cared. I parked half a block away. Lights glowed inside. He was home. I'd been there maybe 15 minutes when the front door opened. A man in his mid-40s stepped out, tall, business casual, carrying a leather briefcase. He checked his watch with obvious irritation, then pulled out his phone as he walked to his car. His body language screamed frustration. Whatever he'd come for, he hadn't gotten it. Craig Pierce. Had to be. Same jawline as Randall, same build, but older. I raised my phone and photographed license plate, face, timestamp. Craig climbed into a silver Audi, slammed the door harder than necessary, and sat on his phone. Angry conversation. Failed mission. If Randall and Craig were working together, and the evidence pointed that way, both fathers were targets. Raymond needed to know. But I needed proof solid enough he couldn't dismiss it. Couldn't explain it away with the natural desire to believe the best about your children. I knew that desire. I was fighting it myself. My phone buzzed. Marcus found something else, sending screenshots. 3 images loaded. Browser search history time-stamped. Guardianship for incapacitated parents. Montana. April 12, 2024. Memory Care Facilities, Bozeman cost. April 20th, 2024. Average lifespan dementia patients. May 3rd, 2024. Elder Care Attorneys, Montana Guardianship. May 15th, 2024. How long does guardianship process take? June 8th, 2024. April, right after Raymond's inheritance cleared probate. Not even a month later, Randall had started researching how to take control of a parent. My phone rang. You see the timeline? Marcus asked. I'm looking at it. This isn't impulsive, Graham. This is researched, planned, calculated. They've been hunting you for 6 months. I stared at Raymond's house, imagining the man inside. a retired principal who'd spent his life teaching helping kids learn, a widower maintaining his late wife's garden volunteering at the library, a father who thought his son's visits were genuine concern. He needs to know, I said, but you need an approach strategy. You can't just knock on his door and tell him his sons are planning to take his money. He'll think you're the crazy one. And then I need more evidence first. I'm working on it. Give me another day. In the meantime, watch your back. If they suspect you're onto them, they might accelerate. The evaluation with Dr. Nash, when is it? Next week. That's your deadline. Once you sit for that evaluation, they start building their official case. I ended the call and sat in the darkening street watching lights come on in houses. Normal families having normal evenings. Meanwhile, two sons were planning to destroy their fathers for money. The final text from Marcus came through. Found this too. Randall searched average lifespan dementia patients 3 different times. May, June, and August. This isn't impulsive, Graham. This is researched, planned, calculated. They've been hunting you for 6 months. Both of you. I sat with those words glowing on my phone screen in the gathering darkness, the weight of 6 months of predatory planning settling into my bones. Then I put the truck in gear and headed home, one truth crystallizing with absolute clarity. Whatever happened next, I wasn't facing it alone. Raymond Pierce and I were connected now, whether we knew each other or not. And they'd made a critical mistake. They'd underestimated both of us. I'd never properly met Raymond Pierce. Saw him twice at family gatherings, shook hands, exchanged pleasantries about weather and grandchildren that didn't exist yet. Now I was about to tell him his sons were planning to take everything. Vivian taught me that harsh truths should come with evidence, not accusations. So I spent Thursday night organizing files, photos of Craig leaving Raymond's house, Marcus's report on Dr. Nash, screenshots of Randall's search history, the timeline showing 6 months of predatory planning. Everything documented, time-stamped, undeniable. Friday morning I dialed Raymond's number. Marcus had provided it along with his daily routine coffee at 8 library volunteer shift, at 10 groceries on Wednesdays. A structured life. The kind that incompetent people don't maintain. He answered on the 4th ring. Hello. Mr. Pierce. This is Graham Foster. We met at Audrey's wedding. And that Christmas, what was it, 5 years back? His voice carried the measured tone of a man who'd spent 30 years managing teenagers. Is everything all right? No, sir, it's not. We need to talk about our sons. In person. Today, if possible. A pause. I could hear him thinking, processing. What's this about Graham? I'd rather explain face to face, but it involves Randall and Craig and it's urgent. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Another pause longer. The Meadowlark Cafe on Main Street, 9 o'clock. I'll be there. The Meadowlark was the kind of place that hadn't changed in 40 years. Vinyl booths, counter-service coffee that could strip paint. I arrived early, chose a corner booth with a view of the door. When Raymond walked in at 9 sharp, I recognized him immediately, despite the years. Tall, lean, silver hair, neatly combed. He moved like someone still teaching invisible students to walk quietly in hallways. He spotted me, nodded, ordered coffee at the counter, then slid into the booth across from me. Graham. He extended his hand. We shook firm grip, steady eye contact. Thank you for coming. You sounded serious on the phone. What's going on? I pulled out my phone, opened the photo of Craig leaving his house. This was taken Wednesday evening, outside your home. Raymond studied it. That's Craig. He visits sometimes. What? He was carrying a briefcase, left frustrated. Got on his phone, immediately angry conversation. I swiped to the next photo close-up of Craig's face. Shot, does he usually visit in business clothes with documents? He brought some papers last week. power of attorney forms. Said it was precautionary in case something happened to me. Did you sign? No. Raymond set down his coffee cup carefully. It felt rushed, too insistent. I said I wanted to think about it. I pulled out Marcus's printed report, slid it across the table. Dr. Clifford Nash, geriatric psychiatrist. He's conducted 47 guardianship evaluations in the past decade. 43 resulted in recommendations for full guardianship. 91% success rate when the state average is 40. He's known for finding incompetence whether it exists or not. Raymond read slowly, his educator's brain processing information methodically. Why are you showing me this? Because Randall and my daughter mentioned him in a conversation I overheard about filing for guardianship. For me, I pulled out the next document, Randall's financial records. My son-in-law is drowning financially. $32,000 annual income, 5-figure credit card debt, behind on rent. He needs money desperately. Randall's always been impulsive with finances. It's more than impulsive. I showed him the search history screenshots. These are from Randall's computer. Guardianship for incapacitated parents, Montana. Memory care facilities cost. Average lifespan dementia patients. Deal, all searched starting in April, right after your inheritance cleared probate. Raymond's face went pale. He stared at the timestamps, the systematic progression of research. My brother died in March. The estate settled in August. $2.1 million. And suddenly both your sons became very concerned about your well-being. No. Raymond shook his head. Craig wouldn't. Craig visited a guardianship attorney 3 weeks ago. It's on record. The coffee shop noise faded into background. Raymond sat frozen, staring at evidence that his sons, both of them, were planning to take control of his life. They think I'm declining too, I said quietly. My daughter and Randall are building a case. Medical evaluations with Dr. Nash, questions about my memory, and medication financial inquiries, disguised as concern. The ranch is worth $3.1 million. Add that to your 2.1, and we're talking 5.4 million reasons for our children to declare us incompetent. I don't understand. Raymond's voice cracked slightly. I raised them. Craig was student body president. Randall made honor roll. I put them through college. How can they? Because they don't see us as fathers anymore. They see assets with expiration dates. Raymond reached for his wallet, with shaking hands pulled out a folded letter. This came 3 weeks ago. I threw it away then. I don't know why, but I retrieved it. He smoothed it on the table. From Dr. Nash's office, suggesting a cognitive evaluation and discussing supervised living arrangements. I thought it was a mistake, some kind of marketing scam. I stared at the letterhead, same as the business card I'd found. Same doctor, same script. It wasn't a mistake, I said. They sent it before Craig started pushing the power of attorney, before the attorney visit. They're building cases against both of us. Medical documentation, legal pressure, family concern. This isn't spontaneous, Raymond. This is systematic. He looked up at me, and I saw the same betrayal I felt every time I thought about Audrey's voice through that kitchen window. What do? We prove we're not the helpless old men they think we are, and we make sure they face consequences. How that's documentation. I'm recording everything: ranch management, financial decisions, medical records. I've hired a private investigator. I need you to do the same. Document your competence, your daily activities, your cognitive clarity. Refuse to sign anything they bring you. Don't sit for any evaluations they schedule. Raymond nodded slowly, his principal's mind organizing information into action steps. They'll escalate if we refuse. Let them. We need them to make mistakes. Aggressive ones, the kind that look bad in court. Court. That's where this ends, Raymond. Either they file for guardianship and we fight it, or we file first elder abuse, financial exploitation, attempted fraud. But we need ironclad evidence before we move. He absorbed that, then met my eyes. I never thought I'd be fighting my own sons. Neither did I. The words tasted bitter. But here we are. We spent another 20 minutes working through details. Raymond would start keeping a daily log: activities, decisions, conversations. He'd get independent medical evaluations. He'd change his bank passwords, review his accounts for any unusual activity. We'd communicate daily, share information, coordinate our defense. When we finally stood to leave, Raymond extended his hand again. Thank you for warning me. If you hadn't. We're in this together now. Two fathers against sons who forgot what family means. Shitila, he nodded, his jaw set with the same determination I'd seen him use when refusing to sign Craig's power of attorney forms. They underestimated us. They did. And that's going to be their biggest mistake. We exchanged phone numbers, agreed to call every evening at 7, a check-in system, proof we were both still independent, still sharp. Made a pact, no confrontation, until the evidence was undeniable. Let them think we were oblivious while we built the case that would destroy their plans. I walked Raymond to his car, watched him drive away toward a life that would never look the same. The October morning was crisp, the kind of day Vivian used to love: clear skies, golden aspens against the mountains, air that tasted like winter was coming. My phone rang before I'd even reached my truck. Marcus Quinn. Graham, I found something about Randall you need to hear. Stasa, his voice carried that careful tone, the one that preceded bad news getting worse. It involves his sister-in-law, Courtney. I think this scheme goes deeper than family greed. In 48 years of ranching, I'd learned that predators rarely hunt alone. They work in packs, exploit weaknesses, and always have more than one angle of attack. Randall was no exception. Saturday evening found me at the kitchen table, the same one where Vivian used to grade her volunteer literacy students' assignments. Now it held a different kind of education. Marcus Quinn's encrypted files spread across my laptop screen, each one revealing another layer of betrayal I hadn't seen coming. The call had come that morning. Marcus's voice carrying that careful neutrality he used when the news was worse than expected. Graham, I've got the financial records you wanted, but I found something else. Before I share what Marcus uncovered, the evidence that changed everything about how I saw this conspiracy, I need to know you're still here with me. On a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked do you think I was when I saw what my detective found? Drop your number in the comments right now. Are we talking a 5 mildly surprised, or a 10 completely blindsided? Fair warning. This story includes some fictionalized details crafted for educational purposes. If that's not what you're looking for, feel free to exit now and explore other content. Something you need to see before we talk strategy. Send it. Encrypted files. Password is your ranch name, all lowercase, no spaces. Call me after you've looked. The files loaded slowly on the ranch internet. First image: Randall and Courtney at a restaurant in Billings, their body language leaving no room for misinterpretation. His hand on her back, her head tilted toward him in a way that spoke of intimacy beyond family connection. Second image: same two people entering a hotel. Different date 3 weeks later according to the timestamp. Third image: Courtney's credit card statement, charges highlighted in yellow. 3 different hotels over 2 months. Always midweek. Always 2 to 3 hours. I clicked through more photos. 16 meetings documented across 18 months. Every 3 to 4 weeks, the pattern consistent and damning. My phone rang. Marcus, right on schedule. You're looking at them. I'm looking. Timeline starts March of last year. That's when the credit card charges begin. Always Courtney's card, always hotels and Billings or Great Falls. I've got location data from Randall's phone matching every meeting. This isn't speculation, Graham. This is documentation. 18 months. I did the math in my head. The affair started long before any guardianship planning. Before Randall's financial situation became desperate. Before Raymond's inheritance cleared probate. There's more, Marcus continued. Text messages. Obtained legally through subpoena preparation. Montana law allows certain evidence gathering for anticipated litigation. He sent another file. Screenshots of exchanges between Randall and Courtney. When are you going to leave her, Randall? Soon, after things settle. Courtney, you keep saying that. Randall, I mean it. Just need to handle some financial matters first. Courtney, I can't keep lying to Craig. Randall, you won't have to. Trust me. The messages painted a clear picture. Courtney believed Randall's promises. Thought she was part of a future that extended beyond hotel rooms. She was a willing participant, no question about that. But she was also being played like everyone else. Graham, there's one more thing. Marcus's voice dropped. Audio recording. Directional microphone from Public Property Legal for licensed investigators in Montana. Hotel balcony, 4th floor, Billings Marriott last week. They didn't know they could be heard. The file loaded. I pressed play. Courtney's voice frustrated and demanding. When are you finally going to leave her, Randall? After the assets are settled. Few more months. Oh, you promised, and I will keep that promise. Randall's voice was smooth, practiced. But if I divorce Audrey now, she gets half of nothing. If I wait until we control Graham's ranch and Raymond's inheritance, I can claim financial hardship. The prenup has provisions for that. A pause. Wind noise against the microphone. Then Courtney again. So this whole guardianship thing is about securing our future. Graham's worth $3.1 million. Raymond's inheritance is $2.1. That's $5.4 million we can access once the guardianships go through. Then I divorce Audrey, claim I'm broke because of legal fees and elder care costs. Prenup kicks in with minimal settlement, and we're free. You, me, and enough money to never worry again. What about Craig? What about him? Randall's voice carried a dismissive edge. He'll be dealing with his own mess when his father's money runs out. He won't have time to worry about us. I stopped the recording, sat back in my chair staring at the laptop screen without really seeing it. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, the walls too close. Randall wasn't just stealing from me and Raymond. He was systematically destroying everyone around him. Craig's marriage, Audrey's trust, Courtney's future, Raymond's independence, my life's work. All of it calculated moves in a game where only he mattered. Vivian used to say she could read people like weather patterns. Watch the small signs predict the coming storm. She'd met Randall twice at the wedding and one Christmas dinner. Afterward, she'd pulled me aside in the kitchen. That young man looks at people like they're tools, Graham, not human beings, just tools to be used. I dismissed it as her being protective of Audrey, told her she was reading too much into a nervous son-in-law trying to make a good impression. Now I understood. She'd seen what I'd missed, the hollowness behind his charm, the calculation in his concern, the complete absence of empathy that made him capable of this. I wondered why Craig seemed so compliant in all this, why he'd go along with stealing from his own father. Now I knew. If Craig wavered, if he showed signs of backing out, Randall had the perfect leverage. The affair, the betrayal, the threat of destroying Craig's marriage if he didn't cooperate. Courtney didn't know she was disposable, a tool to control Craig, and once her usefulness ended, Randall would discard her without a second thought. The recording made that clear. He was planning to claim poverty in the divorce, use the prenup to minimize what Audrey got, then presumably do the same to Courtney when that relationship ran its course. There were betrayals deeper than money. Randall was teaching me that lesson with brutal efficiency. I clicked back to the balcony photo. Randall and Courtney silhouetted against the city lights, her head on his shoulder. She looked content, believed in a future that would never exist. He looked like a man surveying assets. I closed the laptop and sat in the kitchen darkness, Vivian's reading lamp casting long shadows across the table. Outside, the ranch settled into its nighttime rhythms, cattle bedding downwind through the pines, the familiar creaks of a house that had sheltered our family for 4 decades. Everything looked normal. Everything was broken. The question was simple, but the answer wasn't. Did I tell Craig that his brother was having an affair with his wife? Did I hand him that truth? Now watch him explode, possibly turn him into an ally driven by rage and hurt. Or did I use Randall's secret as leverage, let him think he was safe while I built the trap around him? Control the timing of the revelation. For maximum impact, Vivian would say the truth was always better. She believed in honesty, the way she believed in sunrise, fundamental, non-negotiable, the foundation of everything good. But Vivian hadn't heard that recording. Hadn't seen 18 months of calculated manipulation documented in credit card statements and text messages. Hadn't been fighting someone who could sleep with his brother's wife while plotting to steal from both their fathers, all without a trace of conscience. Sometimes the truth was a weapon, and sometimes timing was everything. I'd delivered hard news before. Told ranchers their cattle were sick. Told neighbors their dog had gotten into my herd. But telling a man his brother was sleeping with his wife while plotting to steal their father's money, that was entirely different territory. I called Craig Saturday night, kept it short. We need to talk. Not about your father, about your brother. The pause stretched long. What about Randall? Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., the Silver Spur Diner in Livingston. Come alone. Graham, what's... 6 a.m., Craig. Trust me, you'll want to sit down for this. The Silver Spur opened early for ranchers and truckers, strong, coffee-hot breakfast booths, with enough privacy for difficult conversations. I arrived at 5:45, chose the corner booth, ordered coffee I didn't drink. Craig walked in at 6 sharp, moving like a man heading to an execution. He slid into the booth across from me, expression wary. This better be important. I'm not happy about showing you this. I pulled the envelope from my jacket. But you need to see it. The first photo slid across the table. Randall and Courtney at a restaurant, his hand covering hers. Craig stared, his face going blank. Second photo, them entering a hotel, timestamp clear. Third photo, their body language leaving no room for misinterpretation. More photos spread across the table like a losing hand of cards. Kissing in a parking lot. Walking together, his arm around her waist. Laughing at shared jokes. Craig's hands shook. The color drained from his face, leaving him gray under fluorescent lights. I let him process. Didn't rush. Sometimes hard truths needed silence. How long? Craig finally whispered. 18 months. That's how far back the evidence goes. He set down a photo, Courtney with her head on Randall's shoulder. 18 months. Credit card records show 16 meetings, always hotels, 3 to 4 week intervals. I showed the statement, highlighted charges visible. Always Courtney's card. Craig's jaw worked, teeth grinding. Why show me this? Because you need to understand what's really happening. Randall needed you compliant. This affair is insurance. If you hesitated about the guardianship plan, he had leverage. The guardianship. Craig looked up sharply. My father. You're saying it was never about care. Randall is after the money. Your father's inheritance, my ranch. 5.4 million combined. And he's been manipulating everyone to get it. I pulled out the balcony recording transcript, highlighted. Craig read slowly. His expression shifted from shock to cold, focused rage. He said this about divorcing Audrey after getting control. His finger stabbed the paper. About claiming poverty, that's his voice. Recorded last week. He's planning to take everything and leave everyone, including Courtney, with nothing. Craig set down the transcript with careful precision movements, suggesting violence barely restrained. My father isn't declining. Is he? No. Neither am I. Full cognitive function, excellent health. The decline is fiction Randall needs to justify guardianship. The silence was different now. Not shock. Something colder. Craig looked up, eyes red-rimmed but dry. What do you need me to do? I needed one truth first. Be honest. Have you been part of planning against your father? Craig's face flushed. Yes. Flat, emotionless. Randall said Dad was declining, having confused moments. I believed him because he's my brother. His voice broke. He's my brother. I know. Craig pressed palms against his eyes, shoulders shaking once before he regained control. When he looked up, his jaw was set. What do you need? Stronger this time. Keep pretending. Act like you don't know about Courtney. Act like you're still helping Randall. We gather evidence, recordings, documents, everything. Then expose him in court where he can't escape. Craig studied me. You want me to work with the person who... He stopped, swallowed. Who destroyed my marriage while stealing from my father. I want you to protect Raymond, get justice, but we do it smart, not loud. Silence stretched. Craig stared at the photos, 18 months of betrayal documented. Finally, teach me. We spent 2 hours in that corner booth. Voices low, planning, methodical. Craig would continue appearing to cooperate, but secretly record everything. Montana was one-party consent. If he was part of the conversation, he could legally document it. He'd photograph documents Randall shared, feed false information about my supposedly declining health, memory lapses that didn't exist, confusion that was fiction. Make Randall think the plan was working while we built our case. Meanwhile, act normal at home. Pretend ignorance about the affair. The hardest part, but necessary. Can you do that? I asked. Live with her knowing what you know. Craig's expression hardened. I spent 18 months living with someone lying to my face every day. I think I can manage a few more weeks. We covered technical details. Phone voice recorder. Cloud storage Randall couldn't access. Document conversations without arousing suspicion. The tradecraft of family betrayal. When we finally stood to leave, the sun was up the parking lot, filling. Craig paused by his car, looked back. Graham, thank you for not letting him destroy my father. I nodded, unable to find words. What I didn't say, what I kept to myself driving back toward Willow Creek, was the truth I was betting